was in Syria last week. I was in Iraq the week before. I'm going to Libya on Monday, and I'm going to be in Tunis next week. I work with governments, political parties, civil society organizations. Probably when I'm saying this, many of you are saying, oh, that's boring. Probably he's frustrated. Probably some of you might think, oh, that's interesting. There might be something in it. But what I would say, I'm lucky. I work with outstanding individuals in the Arab world that aspire to have a vision and live for their vision, to have principles and stand for them. At the same time, have a vision to change, to transform their communities. I do believe and I feel I transform politics in the Arab world. I'm going to tell you what happens. I might be an idealist, and some of the people here in the room might think, he's probably crazy. I think there is a possibility. When I move around, if you see what's happening around us, if you have a purpose, I would better try and live with the hope that's going to happen rather than just sit behind and do nothing and blame others for the situation we live in. Probably many of us, we go to our business, we go to our work, we do our normal daily life. At the same time, somewhere deep inside, I need to feel my life has a meaning, so I'd better have a purpose. I've been always a civil society activist, moving between NGOs, volunteering my time for education, youth. At the same time, I always felt my ability to influence is highly limited. I can help, assist, be part of, or support 100 people, 1,000, 5,000, 100,000. How am I going to be able to influence on a system level? When are we going to have solutions for our problems that are on a country level? When are we going to have a better healthcare system? This is what I do, by the way. Healthcare system, education, electoral systems, decentralization, working on finding solutions that will cascade on every citizen and ensuring that each one of us is having their rights, are fulfilling their needs, but also living up to the aspiration they want to live for in their countries, in their communities. And since then, I've been trying to understand how is this happening? What happens that there are individuals, believe it or not, in Lebanon and in any other country in the Arab world, there are individuals who are genuinely transforming politics, doing politics differently. And I started observing them, and then I realized that there are three things that are in common between these individuals. I created these words, these terms, so probably you've never heard of them, but I tried to really understand why are these people outstanding. And I realized there are three competencies that are across. One is governorship. Second is adaptivity. And the third, responsibility. I know you've never heard of these terms. I'm going to elaborate on these terms. At the same time, let me tell you where is all this is coming from. I'm sure when I use the word politics, many of you were going into all these negative connotations. Politics means 3 C's, at least in Lebanon. It's about conflict, corruption, and confessionalism. Every time we talk about politics, immediately I can think of wars, sectarian tensions, corruption in public institutions, bribery, under-the-table deals. So this has been always the connotation. I always ask myself, why politics cannot be about innovation? Why when we use the word politics, it can't be about finding creative solutions to our problems, better managing our public institutions? Is that difficult? So why politics is always linked to negative connotations? And like many of you probably here in the room, I'm one of the people who were born at the beginning of the war. I used to spend more time waiting to fill a gallon of water rather than going to school. Used to eat rotten bread because no fresh bread was available. Nothing was for granted during then. Not oxygen, not electricity, not even people, not life itself. I used to wake up in the morning, I want to make sure when I look around that people I love are still there. And since then, this question kept coming to my mind. Is there a different way to practice politics? And I started searching, and I tried to look up like what are possible ways to transform it. And then, based on my business experience, part of me is an entrepreneur, and part of me is an activist, I realized if we bring these two concepts together, there might be something in it. And I would call these outstanding individuals political entrepreneurs. So we're talking about politics, managing the public sphere and public affairs, so it means providing us with the best quality service and ensuring our rights. At the same time, it's about entrepreneurship, taking risk, creating value, being innovative. Imagine we mix these two concepts together in one individual. There might be something in this. I tried to research the concept online. Some of the definitions, a little bit of literature, it describes it as if it is individuals using politics for individual financial gain. That's not what I'm meaning here. I'm meaning about these outstanding individuals who can stand for their values, have a vision, at the same time, they're willing to govern and manage the public space, public institutions, providing policy solutions, at the same time, being risk takers and create value and solve our issues. Let me elaborate a little bit about these three concepts, these three competencies. The first one is governorship. These individuals have in common that they can govern, they can rule, they can manage public institutions, they can manage organizations. At the same time, they have good leadership skills. They influence people around them positively. So imagine, instead of only govern, most of the time, people who govern, if you go into their offices, so most of the time you see in public institutions, people are smoking, wasting their time, spending their time, not really caring about their role and the public service. So imagine if you go into a public institution and you see that people can govern, at the same time they can influence positively people around them. That would be a difference. I can think now of, there was this lady who was with the Peshmerga during the Saddam regime. This lady used to go to the mountains, and literally fight for her people's liberation. Until one day, Saddam fell, and she started a women movement, trying to help women in Iraq to live up to their dreams and their aspirations, empower them, support them. And then this woman she founded the first Ministry of Women Affairs in Iraq. This woman had the energy and had the vision, the competence to govern, at the same time to lead. I was in a workshop, she was in the room, all young ladies around her were super inspired. They were just looking at her, hoping one day they will become like her. The second competence is about adaptivity. It's adaptation and creativity. Many times when we talk about adaptation, so we're living in a difficult environment. So many times we have a lot of issues to deal with. Unemployment, environment, health, education, technology. So many problems we need to deal with. Yes, but we need to adapt to the new realities. At the same time, we need to be innovative. Imagine there are millions of jobs that need to be created by 2020 for the Arab world. We'll talk about more than 100 million jobs to be created. How are we going to do that? People I met in the Arab world, in Lebanon, these people who can have a competence of being able to adapt, to learn. How many times you meet politicians who can listen? Rarely I can go into an office and they can ask you questions. They can't even ask questions. So imagine if we live in a world where politicians can listen, ask questions, learn, and tell you, oh, maybe I don't know, help me out. This cannot happen easily in our world today. There are people who are like this, who can adapt, learn to new realities, at the same time being creative. The third competence is responsibility. It's about responsibility and responsiveness at the same time. So you know, when people become politicians, imagine they become a different class. So they drive different cars, have bodyguards, suddenly as if there is a gap between them and citizens. They forget that people who got them into power, they have needs and they got them for a reason. So a third important governance for the next generation of leaders, political entrepreneurs, is about these people who can be responsible, means looking at the system as a whole and see how they're going to solve problems, at the same time hearing people's needs. I worked on a project on decentralization in Lebanon, moved in 130 municipalities. And when we were looking at meeting people and interviewing people, whenever we asked about decentralization, they didn't connect. What they cared for is this woman who produces vinegar, how she's going to live better, how she's going to make sure that she has a distribution channel, how she's going to be able to produce and minimize her costs. She cared less about if we're doing decentralization or not. At the same time, people who work on decentralization, they don't understand people's needs. So how can we create this link through having this major competence in the next generation of political entrepreneurs, being responsible and responsive at the same time? I'm sure many of you are saying, is this true? Is it possible? Can we find these political entrepreneurs? Yes, there are all around us. Probably, I'm sure many of you here in the room are political entrepreneurs. Probably you never tagged yourself as such. If you find people around you who are transforming politics, if you see people who have high integrity, high willingness, I would like to call it irada. I think in Arabic it's a wonderful term. Has strong dedication to change the reality, but also transform it, translate it into a system level. If you're working on a project on education, or I heard about reconciliation or rapprochement, how can we make out of this on a system level, translate it into policy? These people exist. My friend Amr is Libyan. After 42 years being away from Libya, he decided to leave his job, come back to Libya, make sure that democracy and accountability are going to reign. I'm going to finish my session by inviting you. Anyone believes who is an entrepreneur, a political entrepreneur in the room? You raise your hands. I'm sure there are more than this. I want to be governed, but in the next phase, by political entrepreneurs who have these three competencies. It took me a lot of time to take the risk to make sure I want to transform politics. I like what Goethe says. He says, if you dream or dream you can, begin it. Begin it now. There is boldness and magic in it. Begin it now. Thank you.